Hello, my world history people. This is Mrs. Bowen, and today we are going to talk about Stalin's 5-year plan. So, update your table of contents. The date is 3/27. Oh, Miss Bowen. 3/27/20. Stalin's 5-year plan, and the page number remains elusive. We have no idea. Okay? All right, so I want you to make your page look like this. Again, if you want to pause the video, please, please, please make your page look like this. Some people are not doing that, but I guarantee it will make taking your notes a lot easier. Take up the whole page. So you have Stalin's 5-year plan, collective farms, secret information about the 5-year plan, improving industry, individual rights, Stalin, and the totalitarian state. All right, just a reminder from yesterday, our standard for today was to determine the causes and the results of the Russian Revolution from the rise of the Bolsheviks under Lenin, and that's what we covered yesterday, to Stalin's first 5-year plan, which is what we're going to cover today. Okay, so remember, yesterday we talked about the rise of the Bolsheviks and how Lenin seized power, and Lenin was taking the slow path to communism. He wasn't doing it very fast. They didn't have a lot of industry, so they were kind of taking their time because things were not exactly perfect, as according to Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto. So they kind of had to do it their own way. Well, things change with Stalin. Things are really going to ramp up. So Stalin has a 5-year plan. And in his 5-year plan, Stalin ordered the construction of massive industrial infrastructure. This includes factories and transportation networks. All of the private farms to fund these projects, Stalin ordered the collectivization of agriculture. So all the private individual farms were replaced with massive state-owned collective farms. So this is like a factory, but for farming. So if you remember industrialization, when we had all those factories being built, think of it like that, but it's farming. So the grain produced on these collective farms was sold abroad, and the money that they got was used to pay for industrialization. So grain production increased from 73 million tons in 1928 to 95 million tons in 1940. So grain was sold abroad to pay for industrialization. To the export of this grain, the resistance to collectivization and the inefficiencies on collective farms led to massive food shortages in the Ukraine. From 1932 to 1933, more than 4 million Ukrainians died in what is called the Great Famine. So it was just an inefficient system, and it wasn't working very well in the 1930s, and they didn't have enough food for everyone to eat. So here's a little paragraph about collective farms. So before the revolution, most Russian land was divided among kulaks. These were wealthy landowners who controlled much of Russia's land. That's not fair. Stalin's policies in the late 1920s took that land and redistributed it, creating communities in which peasants farmed together, and they shared all the profits. So the state provided machinery, seeds, and training for the new farming techniques. So you can see here that they're trying to make it more equal, and that's the the basis of communism is to try to create more equality between the social classes, but it's not really going to work as well as it should. Like, for example, in Ukraine, where they had all those problems. Okay, you don't have to write anything down for this slide, but I think it's an interesting quote from Joseph Stalin. He says, "We are 50 to 100 years behind the advanced industrial countries. We must make good the distance or make up the difference in 10 years or be crushed." So he carried out a heavy propaganda machine, and he basically had all these posters and all these different things that were put out there to try to make people want to work and create industry and make a better Soviet Union. So you've got posters like these that are showing happy workers going off to work at the factories, in the railways, in industry. All right, here's some secret information about the 5-year plan. Some members of Soviet society attempted to undermine the success of the 5-year plan, and they went to extreme measures to do this. So factories had to meet production quotas. This means that they had to produce a certain number of shirts or pants or whatever per month. And they often cut corners or simplified the products so that they could meet those quotas. So the quality of the product was not there because they were more concerned about quantity. Are they meeting the production quotas? So a shirt factory might leave off the cuffs or even the buttons on a shirt to speed up production. Because of this, many Soviets chose to shop early in the month, hoping to find higher quality items before the factories were pressed to meet their quotas. So far we have food shortages in the Great Famine, and we have clothes that are not up to quality. It's not quality items. Yes, everybody's going to get a shirt and a pair of pants, but your shirt may not have buttons, or it may not have cuffs. So is the quality's not there, and that's really important. Here's another piece of propaganda, and this is showing the two sides of the coin. It's showing the farmers over here who are making the food and distributing it to all of the workers who are over here in the factories. So they're shaking hands, they're happy to be working together, and this is, supposed to be a perfect Russian society where everybody is getting along and being productive and everybody's equal. See how these two guys look pretty equal in their stance, in their height. The whole thing looks pretty equal, but it's not actually that true. Okay, so one thing Stalin does do is improve industry. He seized control of the economy. He set high production quotas on steel, coal, oil, and electricity. Remember the Industrial Revolution and how important coal was? So that was very important. And his plans dramatically improved Soviet industry and helped to modernize the military. So you can see coal and steel production, and he has 2 5-year plans. In the first 5-year plan, it goes up pretty significantly. Second 5-year plan, very significantly. So you can see that he is able to affect some change. And then here's a great picture of Stalin looking larger than life. Got his military all around him, airplanes, everything. So his main goal is to industrialize and create his military. All right, let's talk about individual rights for a minute. So Stalin declared men and women to be equal. Women could vote, and they could join the Communist Party. Women were expected to work in factories and the collective farms, just like men. But one downside of this is they also expected women to have large families. So divorces were harder to get, and women were encouraged to strengthen the family by having children. So here you can see a propaganda poster all about women. It looks like we have, somebody who might be in a factory, somebody who's on a farm, and then, hey, maybe that's a mother. So these were the roles of women under communism. A downside of communism was the effect on ethnic minorities. So minorities in the USSR were deported. That means they were removed from the country. They were physically attacked or beaten or moved to labor camps. Okay, so Stalin had lots of labor camps, and the secret police would go and round up political opponents, counter-revolutionaries, anybody he really did not like. And he sent a lot of people, about 1 million of his own people he executed, and then sent millions more into exile in Siberia. So so Russian communists, they received better pay, better housing, better jobs. So obviously this is not an equal society if you're favoring one person over another. In 1932, Stalin wipes out religion. He closed 10,000 churches, and he created a nation of atheists. Basically, there was no emphasis on religion. People were not going to be religious. They were going to appeal to the state, and communism was their religion. Okay, so a little bit more about Stalin. He was popular despite the suffering that he imposed on his people. He wasn't mean to everybody, but again, he was mean to people that opposed him. So the secret police rounded up political opponents, dissenters, and counter-revolutionaries. And then we have something called the Great Purge, and this was from 1936 to 1938 when Stalin ordered the execution of 1 million of his own people and sent millions more into exile in Siberia. And this is something about a totalitarian leader. They do not allow you to question them at all. They will just take you away from your family and send you to Siberia where it's really cold and awful. Or they'll just kill you and your family doesn't even know. So the result of this is a totalitarian communist state, and the Soviet Union was now a global industrial power. Okay, so a global industrial power. So that's really important. So I just want to wrap up with a definition kind of a totalitarian state, and that is where you have a dictator. It's a dictatorship. There's one party rule. That means nobody is voting for that dictator. They just take over and they're in power and the people really don't have a choice. There is the primacy of the state or the importance of the state over the individual. So individual needs are not necessarily looked at. They're looking at the needs of the big picture of the entire state. And the state controls most aspects of everyone's life. So not a fun place to be, I would not think. Okay, so that is all for today. Make sure that you go and upload your notes. Again, this lesson was called Stalin's 5-Year Plan, so look for the Stalin's 5-Year Plan assignment. And that is all for this week. We have done it, 2 weeks of world history, virtual, online. Good job, you guys. All right, take care.